While most are releasing their best horror of the year lists, followers of ML Miller Frights know that I do my countdown in the month of October, celebrating the Halloween season. So while I just started compiling my new list for the best of horror of 2021 through 2022, I thought it would be fun to look back at some of the best films released since October 1st, 2021. I have to admit there are some films I haven't seen yet, like Last Night in Soho, Lamb, and a few others, and there are tons of horror films to be released, so in no way will this list look the same come next October. But until then, here are 13 great horror films released in the last 3 months to chew on. Welcome back to ML Miller Frights. I'm ML Miller. Before we begin, please do me a favor and punch that like button down below. Share this video with all of your social media addicted pals. Click subscribe to this channel and ring that bell for notifications. So let's get started with my favorite horror films released since October 1st, 2021. Take note that the order these films are presented in isn't a countdown, but a listing of films in the order of their release. Here we go. TITANE. It was released on October 1st, 2021. It's available on demand from Neon Pictures and directed and written by Julia Ducournau. How does one describe TITANE? The latest film from Raw filmmaker Julia Ducournau. Well, basically it's about Alexa, a young survivor of a car crash who develops an unnatural love for cars and hatred towards humans. When she grows up, Alexa, played by Agnes Roussel, is a dancer at an auto show who is approached and assaulted by a fan after one of the shows. Dazed and confused from the assault, Alexa then seemingly has sex with her favorite car and becomes pregnant with something. This takes Alexa down a dark and murderous path where she meets Vincent, played by Vincent Linden, a firefighter who lost his son years prior. Seeing an opportunity to lay low, Alexa poses as Vincent's lost son. Much gender confusion, strange dancing, oddly infectious music, and twisted events follow. TITANE is one of those epic films that begins seemingly like one kind of film, yet follows the character through an extended amount of time you normally don't get in quote-unquote regular films. In most horrors, the terror is short-term and immediate, but TITANE's bizarre and horrifying events happen over a lifetime, and it makes the film feel much more like you're witnessing a life unfold rather than a single occurrence. Ducournau blew my socks off with Raw's brutal yet intimate story of a young cannibal coming of age. In TITANE, Ducournau uses the same kind of microscope, looking at an equally broken and damaged character in Alexa, and extends that view to flesh out Vincent as well. The result is a disturbing, relentless, brave, brutal, gory, and absolutely memorable film with an ending that will make you laugh and cry and wonder. There's nothing like TITANE out there, and it shouldn't be missed. WEKUFE, Origin of Evil, was released on October 1st, 2021. It's available on demand and on Amazon. It's directed and written by Javier Attridge. While this found footager was made a few years ago, it's definitely one of the more watchable found footage films released recently. It's about a pair of students who venture to an island off of southern Chile to investigate the connection between the high amount of sex crimes and abductions and how they relate to the local legend of some kind of monster in the woods. This film is made interesting because one of the filmmakers has an obsession with found footage films and desires to make one, and how that contrasts with the motivation of his girlfriend/co-investigator who simply wants to make a serious piece of reporting for her class. The infectious banter and bond between the two makes WEKUFE, Origin of Evil, an entertaining watch, and when things get dire, it makes it all the more riveting. The Medium was released on October 14th, 2021. It's available streaming exclusively on Shudder. It's directed by Banjong, Pisanthanakun, and written by Choi, Chantavit, Dhanasevi, and Hong-jin. While The Medium might begin as a mockumentary-style slice of life about a Thai shaman named Nim, played by Sawani Utuma, It quickly descends into sheer terror as Nim's niece, Mink, played by Nariya Gomongkolpek, becomes possessed by an evil spirit. The medium not only gives a wonderfully detailed look at Thai culture, but it attempts to dispel some of the myths of shamanism while enlightening those who know nothing about the importance the role plays in local tribes. This may seem like a harmless mock documentary at first, but holy poopin' crap does it go sideways when Mink shows signs of possession. The film goes into next-level horror quickly by the final act, depicting some of the most terrifying images and sequences you're going to experience. Reminiscent of The Exorcist, The Taking of Deborah Logan, and Lake Mungo, The Medium is top-level horror. Halloween Kills was released on October 15th, 2021. It's available streaming on Peacock, on demand, and newly released on DVD in an uncut form. It was directed by David Gordon Green and written by David Gordon Green, Danny McBride, and Scott Teems. I'm an avid slasher addict, as most of you know, and while David Gordon Green's Halloween series is far from perfect, the production and serious intent behind the films are at a level rarely seen in slasher films. Halloween Kills douses the audience in member berries, but it also provides some ruthless carnage and victims you actually grow to care about as Michael goes on a directionless rampage through Haddonfield. Though Jamie Lee is sidelined in this one, there are some fun moments between her and co-star Will Patton. Yes, there are some leaps in logic and forced decisions, but there's also some awesome moments of Michael Myers doing what he does best, and despite the nitpicks and complaints, you know you're going to be there next year to see Halloween Ends right along beside me. Slumber Party Massacre was released October 16th, 2021. It's available streaming on Sci-Fi and available on demand and digital download from Shout Studios and Blue Eyes Productions. It's directed by Danishka Esterhazy and written by Suzanne Keilly. The remake of Slumber Party Massacre could have been an arduous descent into modern-day politics and forced feminism, a la the Last Black Christmas remake. But filmmakers Danishka Esterhazy and Suzanne Keilly are smarter than that, presenting how ridiculous both sides of the political spectrum can often be. When a group of gals throws a slumber party at a secluded cabin, it's almost inviting a slasher to come get them. But next door is a bunch of dudes having a slumber party that is just as rowdy, if not more. When the killer does strike, there's actually an edge to the rampage, as well as a wry, sarcastic wit to it all. There are two guys simply named Guy 1 and Guy 2, commenting on the interchangeability between these victims and the lack of variety of victims in slasher films. This is a fast-paced, slickly written, and downright fun film that will please both sides of the aisles, as long as you put down that political lens and simply enjoy something for an hour 30. Broadcast Signal Intrusion was released on October 22nd, 2021. It's available on demand and DVD from Dark Sky Films. It's directed by Jacob Gentry and written by Phil Drinkwater and Tim Woodall. If you're a fan of YouTube rabbit hole conspiracy videos, Broadcast Signal Intrusion is going to be your jam. Set in Chicago, 1999, a desperate widower named James, played by Glee's Harry Shum Jr., becomes obsessed with a series of broadcast interruptions by a masked man screaming and moaning into the camera. When James links the interruptions with a series of missing persons, he begins to form a hypothesis that these haunting videos have something to do with his wife's death. Broadcast Signal Intrusion captures that feeling of venturing into someplace dark and forbidden, a feeling that oozed from films like Hardcore and 8mm. I had issues with the way this one wraps up, but the videos presented in Broadcast Signal Intrusion, inspired by true-life clips that have surfaced on YouTube through the years, contain imagery that will cause your spine to tingle and your nights to be sleepless. Nobody Sleeps in the Woods Tonight 2 was released on October 27th, 2021. It's available streaming on Netflix. It's directed by Bartosz M. Kowalski and written by Bartosz M. Kowalski and Miriela Zarad. This sequel to the slasher throwback from Poland not only reframes classic slasher cliches in fresh and new ways, but it also picks up right where the last one left off. Two brothers, horribly mutated by a meteor that lands in their secluded woodland home, went on a rampage and killed an entire troop of scouts in the previous film. In part 2, they're locked up in a local prison right beside the final girl who narrowly escaped them. When the final girl escapes, it escalates the horror as this slasher evolves into the grossest of body horror and shifts the perspective to that of the infected monsters instead of dim-witted campers. The result is a unique and downright hilarious sequel that escalates stakes just the way all good sequels should. If you are a fan of Dead Snow and its sequel, Nobody Sleeps in the Woods Tonight and its sequel is for you. The Spine of Night was released on October 29, 2021. It's available on demand from RLJE Entertainment and Shudder. It's directed and written by Philip Gellott and Morgan Galen King. Utilizing the rotoscope method, this feature film tells an epic story of an ancient evil making its way across a vast landscape and ending up in the hands of a powerful wizard. Only a small band of warriors have the will and weapons to stop him, and if they don't, it could mean the end of the entire universe itself. This is a broad tale that spans eons, set in a fantastical time of swords and sorcery. With an amazing voice cast comprised of Joe Manganiello, Patton Oswalt, Lucy Lawless, Richard E. Grant, and Larry Fessenden, this film is a throwback to the age when Ralph Bakshi ruled mature animation. This type of drawing over filmed actors may feel dated, but it gives a wonderful weight and depth to the characters, especially when they are cast against wonderfully rendered painted backdrops. And the violence and gore? Holy shit, you haven't seen anything like this on screen before. Fans who remember Heavy Metal, the movie, Fire and Ice, and of course The Hobbit will flip for The Spine of Night. You just don't get animation like The Spine of Night these days, but hopefully, with more attention to this awesome film, there'll be a chance for more like it someday soon. Antlers was released on October 29, 2021. It's available on demand and soon to be available on Blu-ray from Fox Searchlight. It's directed by Scott Cooper and written by Nick Antikoska, Henry Chason, and Scott Cooper. The highly anticipated Wendigo flick from Scott Cooper and Nick Antikoska finally saw audiences at the end of October. While I don't know what I was expecting, I do feel the anticipation for this film hurt it. Still, this is a riveting depiction of addiction and abuse through the lens of a creature feature. A young boy attempts to keep his father alive, knowing that he has become a Wendigo, a monster of ancient Native American legend which only knows to consume. When his teacher, played by Kerry Russell, investigates, the monster is released and wreaks havoc on a small Oregon town riddled with opioid addiction. While the metaphor is ever present, there are some fantastic practical effects, as well as some scenes of absolute soul-shearing tension. I plan on revisiting Antlers later in the year to reevaluate it without the hype. As is, it's still an impressive big-budget horror. The Feast was released on November 19, 2021. It's available on demand from IFC Midnight. It's directed by Lee Haven Jones and written by Roger Williams. From Wales comes The Feast, a modern take on a local folklore set against the backdrop of a multi-course dinner planned at the country home of a member of parliament. When their normal server catches ill, Kadi, played by Ans Elway, arrives on the family's doorstep to take her place to prep and serve the meal. But something is very wrong with Kadi, though the family is too preoccupied with prepping the meal and their own lives to notice. You're going to enjoy The Feast if you've packed your patience. It's a definite slow burner, with all sorts of odd characters and events peppered all the way through to make the trip interesting. While you might be wondering if this is even a horror film halfway through, it definitely picks up steam by the explosive and bloody ending. The Feast reminded me of the earlier films of Yorgos Lanthimos, like Dogtooth and The Alps, which presented a flawed and bizarre family and then watched them tear themselves apart. The Feast is relentless in its final moments, and while the message is telegraphed a bit too obviously in the final seconds, this is a wonderful ride of a film to take. Agnes was released on December 10, 2021. It's available on demand from Magnet Releasing. It's directed by Mickey Reese and written by Mickey Reese and John Selvage. From the filmmaker who brought you the offbeat vampire next door foodie horror, Climate of the Hunter, Mickey Reese, comes Agnes, which is one of the more bent and twisted takes on the exorcism genre you're bound to see. Ben Hall returns as a laid-back exorcist, teaching his student to lighten up when it comes to the rules of the cloth. While there is a mid-film transition that is quite jarring in tone and content, the unconventional way filmmaker Reese presents the world is reminiscent of Wes Anderson's centered and staged scenery and fabulous musical choices. Expect to be shocked, surprised, and maybe a little bit enlightened in this possession film like no other. Hurt was released on December 10th, 2021. It's available on demand from Gravitas Ventures. It's directed by Sunny Mali and written by Sunny Mali and Solomon Gray. Brian Bertino produced this cliché-shredding stalk and slash reminiscent of his earliest film, The Strangers. While it has more of a slower pace and dire tone like Bertino's The Dark and the Wicked, director Sunny Mali takes expectations and tosses them out the window, making Hurt feel dangerous to watch. A married couple attempt to mend their relationship after the husband returns traumatized by the war. They decide to go into the city to a Halloween hayride, but the horrors of the ride seem to follow them home. The latter part of Hurt is a relentless cat-and-mouse chase, but it's the bleak setup in the first 45 minutes that gives it the weight to stand out as a truly fantastic slasher film. Some may take issue with the pace, but if you're a fan of The Strangers and Bertino's work in general, you're bound to find something scary to like in Hurt. The Scary of 61st was released on December 17th, 2021. It's available on demand from Utopia. It's directed by Dasha Nekrazova and written by Dasha Nekrazova and Madeline Quinn. I saw The Scary 61st at the Music Box of Horrors in Chicago last October and was waiting to give my review of it as it was to be released on Shudder on December 17th. But it never showed up, and a little online sleuthing surprised me when I found the film was in fact released on demand a little while ago. So expect my full review of this twisted bit of conspiratorial eroticism very soon. Until then, let me say that director, co-writer, and star Dasha Nekrazova is a talent to watch. Not only does she have an absolutely commanding presence on screen, rolling her eyes suspiciously and wearing those fishnet stockings extremely well, but the story Nekrazova conveys is absolutely electric and utterly disturbing. When a pair of students move into a new apartment, they discover it used to be owned by Jeffrey Epstein himself and used as a den of debauchery with his underage victims. When a woman obsessed with the Epstein conspiracy, Nekrazova, shows up on their doorstep, all three of the gals' lives are turned upside down. The results are eye-opening, bloody, and absolutely entrancing. Nekrazova schmelds taboo, eroticism, and the supernatural seamlessly and will make you look over both shoulders and trust no one by the very end. Actress Betsy Brown gives one of the most riveting performances this side of Isabella Adjani's tortured soul in Possession as one of the roommates affected most profoundly by the curse of Epstein. This supernatural conspiracy film is bound to ruffle feathers of the uptight, but it is truly unique and makes it clear that Nekrazova is a dangerous filmmaker worth watching very, very closely. So those are my favorite horror films released since last October. What I miss, and what horror films are you looking forward to in the coming year? Let me know down in the comments. That'll be it for today. Please chime in down below in the comments and let me know how on the nose or mind-numbingly wrong I am, or you can counter with your own review. So guys, you know how YouTube works. I'd love to be able to dedicate more time to this channel. I'm not monetized yet, so if you want to help me out, remember to hit all the pertinent bells and whistles down below. Want some spooky comics to read? I have 2 new horror comic book trade paperbacks you should look out for. Both Grave Trancers and Pirouette, collecting never-before-published issues, can be found in only the finest of comic book shops. If you're looking for written reviews, you can find them on my website, mlmillerwrites.com. If you really want to show your support, I also have a Patreon page at mlmiller. Look for the link to my Patreon page down below. Thank you so much for your time, and take care.
You're doomed to live the life you're meant to be. Your